Hello and welcome to the Internet on Mondays.
Welcome everybody, I'm Unbreakable,
And I'm Kiro.
and we're gonna talk about random shit.
Well, possibly not that random, but okay. We've been thinking for a while what do we actually want to talk about today, and like the first most general idea that comes to mind is SpaceX, because they have launched some random crap to space yet again, and it was I think the biggest payload ever. The Inmarsat 5.
Okay, I'm gonna be honest
it's
here.
worth flying.
I have actually not read it. I just looked it up on like Reddit, and on SpaceX.com I was like, oh, okay, they launched something.
Yeah, I don't really read their site. I just watch the news. I mean, the Reddit is the current generation's news, of course. And, look at videos, look at photos, marvel at their mind for a little bit. And, yeah, that's cool. I really feel like they succeeded in trying to, to do something that is actually impossible to do.
I mean, now looking at it, I find it really cool what like Elon Musk is doing with SpaceX. I'm loving it. Like he's pushing the science industry really, really hard, which I love. Like you can see it with his other stuff. Like, he actually came up with a company name called Boring, right?
Yeah, and he's doing
meeting,
like
and he's like, okay, I'm gonna make a boring company. Literally, like we're talking like underground boring with like a boring machine, and he called it Boring.
It's because it's fucking boring, and he's just like, oh, that's my side project. I use like I use students for that. I use like cheap machines. We're talking cheap, like not really that cheap, but and that's like my side project. I don't really spend that much time on it. Like for a man who actually launches shit into space, maybe tunneling can be a side project, but frankly speaking, this is fucking amazing in general. I don't know like if there is any other person currently on this planet that is that amazing.
I mean, just think about it. He's like, oh, okay, I have a good idea. Let's just make a company out of it. What did he do? Like, let's talk about what he did before. So he had the idea of paying stuff easier, so he just came up with the name PayPal. Boom, made the website. 2 years later, it's like the biggest fucking web service about money that you can find. Like over the last week, I used PayPal like at least once a day.
Yeah, it's like there is no real alternative because who else? It's not possible to enter the market because
it's simple. It gets the job.
You can't make it better, basically.
No,
and he doesn't he doesn't even spend any time on PayPal right now. I think he's just like, oh, it's done and it's functioning.
I mean, he obviously spends little time with it, well, like very, very little, I could imagine. But I don't think he's spending like all his day thinking, how can I make paying more easier so I can get more money? Probably not.
No,
I don't think it's the way he thinks. Like, when we look at SpaceX, like that is like a lot of people laugh about it when he like crashes, but then when you think about it, it's like, okay, he crashed, but why? What happened? How can he make it better? Right? So the more you fail, the better you will succeed.
Yeah, and that's what everyone crashes.
Everyone crashes. You can look at NASA and just look at them. They launched full-on humans where he just sent a rocket. No humans in it. Which is way safer.
Yeah, and he already has a reliable way of sending things into space, and he still says that he's not going to be launching people into space.
No, he wants it to be like, if you saw on the website, maybe he was talking, or they wrote about this whole commercial crew taking America's astronauts to space thing, where he's like, the basic gist of it is that it's fully autonomous, but the astronauts themselves still have some control over it should an autonomous system fail. But that's something I could think that could be very, very normal in the future, where you're just like a car, like an autonomous car. I need to learn that word more. God damn it.
Yeah, when you still can grab the controls if something actually goes wrong.
Yeah.
But
like,
there is again.
Okay, I'm gonna go into that car. I'm gonna go into that car / spaceship, and I'm gonna go to work or go into space. Like, okay, we're talking about two very different things for our time. In the future,
yeah, and considering he's working on both things, like he's working on Tesla, which is soon to be an autonomous car. I think eventually, after it
already is
right now.
It already is to a certain extent. Like,
yeah,
of course it had its failures and bugs, but that's normal. That's to be expected. But for general purposes, the Tesla driving mode, which I find very funny, is more safe than any human driver.
Because human reaction is limited. And
yes,
human perception is limited as well.
Yeah, I mean, we're fucking monkeys.
That's like the main problem with allowing partial control for a pilot. Because no matter how good a pilot is, at some point he's not going to be able to surpass the automated system.
No, like, an automated system never gets tired, never wants to get paid, never really needs anything other than electricity or mechanical interaction from other parts.
But I mean more like from the perspective of emergency situation. For example, you are a pilot of, let's say, a commercial rocket that, I don't know, even like a passenger rocket that sends people to the moon. Because why not, right? And if something goes wrong with the automatic piloting system, that it's more than possible that you cannot even recover using like manual control, because manual control is going to be tied to the system to some extent, because nobody is going to use fully mechanical controls at that stage of space exploration. And if something actually breaks, it means that it is possible that everything fucking broke. And that's I think the main problem with allowing partial control, and why he does not still want to launch people into space, because until you can guarantee complete safety for them from themselves, so that they don't screw up anything, as well as the system is completely safe, you don't really want to take such a risk, especially as a private company, because he is, like the SpaceX is indeed a private company to some extent.
To some extent, obviously, in some extent as well, it's kind of becoming a government company.
Yeah, because it's not possible to remain fully private at that stage. But well, it's like I mean private more than like he is a face of the company, and if something goes wrong, like it's very easy to blame him for that happen.
Of course. Like, and if some bullshit happens, like if a rocket explodes, like you saw that with NASA when we were looking back at, like, I think it was 2005 where they sent 5 astronauts, or wanted to send 5 astronauts into orbit, the ISS.
Yeah.
And the rocket 2 minutes after its launch blew up before it even reached space.
Yeah, but with NASA, it's much easier to.
Of course, it's a government company. They can just like put out the president and they can do it. For them, it's simple, but for Elon Musk, he needs to stand there and say, "Yeah, I fucked up."
They're never going to lose their money, even if everything breaks. But well, of course, now that Trump is in the lead, they might as well lose money. But whatever. Let's not touch that topic. The idea is that
let's rather not.
Well, for example, Challenger disaster, which is one of the most well-known disasters
with like the talking about,
and Space Shuttle is definitely an experimental program or at least was an experimental program for NASA, because it never paid for itself in the long run, and it was not viable, but it was a proof of concept. I mean, it was an amazing proof of concept.
I mean, if you look at it this way, like, I'm thinking about this for a long time now, where it's like, okay, we sent people to the fucking moon in, what was it, 1960s, 1970s. We sent people to the moon. Why are we not doing it again? Where are the limitations? Like, we have much better and much greater technology now. And we're not doing it.
We don't need to? That's basically the idea.
I guess. But why not do it with updated technology?
There might be a list of lunar missions.
Might be. I mean, we still have Mars, like, 2030. That's still a thing.
I remember, like, crewed lunar missions. Basically, there are some proposed lunar missions to the next decade, basically. But other than that,
I mean, well, we will see. I mean, I'm really hoping SpaceX will actually get shit done. Because, for me, SpaceX is like NASA, but in this teenage years, where it's like, it's not sure what it's gonna do,
Yeah.
It has, like, some sort of an idea what it's gonna do, so it's, like, really unstable for now. Like, looking at it as a teenager rather than a company, right? Like the company itself, like Elon Musk is a very, very intelligent guy and he knows what the hell he's doing.
Yeah, I don't understand what you mean. Like it's not a it's a stable company, but it still doesn't really know what they still don't really have the general path for them to walk on.
Right.
They're experimenting. They're doing different things. And
one of the things I would love to see SpaceX rather Elon Musk touch on would be a space elevator. I mean, how awesome would that be? Like,
other than it's like physically impossible, yeah, that would be amazing.
I mean, maybe with boron and carbon nanotubes, but that's a different story.
Yeah, but the question is again, why do you want a space elevator if you have a rocket that doesn't cost any money, basically, in comparison to a non-reusable lifter that we are
a lifter using. Would be reusable. I mean, guess with this rocket, it is gonna be reusable.
Yes, fair enough. Yes. So that doesn't that really mitigates the concept of the need of a space elevator in general. Because
but look at it this way: how much faster will a rocket like deteriorate over an elevator? Like a lot faster. We're talking about a solid, like some sort of a solid or liquid fuel that we're using. Like we're still using very old technology here. But yeah, I don't know what I think about solid fuel, to be honest. Like if you look at a space elevator, like you don't need solid fuel. The only thing you really need to care about is the elevator and how you want to like go around debris and open space about it. But even then, there has been inputs from people saying we could just attach it to a boat, go from there, or some stuff like that.
Yeah, by the way, talking about Kessler syndrome, that might become a huge problem when you're using like static objects. That because the problem with a space elevator is that it is not in orbit, basically.
No, so it's basically like you stringing like a volleyball to yourself and then just you spinning around. Basically, I don't know. I like the space elevator more because, like, if you look at it this way, like I said earlier, the solid fuel is still permanent. Like, the rocket is going to wear out at some point when you go ahead and just pump it fuel constantly. You're saying you're going to use the same rocket for like 5 or 6 years, which is probably a runtime you can expect from a reusable rocket, right?
Yeah.
That's about what you can expect. But if you're going to look at a space elevator, you would maybe need to exchange the wire is the biggest problem, to be fair, of how you want to like not crash into debris that's in space or crash into space shuttles or whatever is out there in space.
Yeah, every single thing has its own benefits and problems, and I think that in terms of using current generation materials, it is impossible. But if we if we go like, I don't know, like 100 years into the future, for example, and imagine we can create a system that is able to sustain such loads for long periods of time, then first thing is if we can create something that can withstand this force, can we not also create a better engine casing and like the general engine itself from better materials so that they can withstand longer oh my god, I forgot the word, sorry.
Like a longer runtime or whatever.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for, a longer runtime, and maybe like even a different type of fuel, of course, not completely different, because, well, the main problem is actually the atmosphere, not the products we're using currently. Because if we, for example, if we're using the rocket on an atmosphereless body like on a moon, we don't experience nearly as much pressure and heat problems when we launch things and we land things. Like the main problem why Space Shuttle, for example, had to be rebuilt from scratch every time it launched and landed was because it fucking burns up in the atmosphere when it lands. Not because engines.
Of course, that's another issue we have. Like, there's so many like parameters that we need to care about, and so many different like things that we need to care about while we're going to space, getting back from space, and all in between. So,
yeah,
it's an issue that just over time with more technology just needs to be addressed. I mean, both the space elevator and both the space shuttle, for example, have both its down and upsides. So it's really hard to say what is better, but if you compare it to price, like price to performance, let's say you can just like strap some big ass fucking solar like panels to a space elevator and it can use the power from the sun. So you're basically using free power for whatever you're doing. If that power is enough is another question, but let's say we could do it, right? That would be free energy. If you're using solid or liquid fuel, you're gonna run into issues because at some point in the future we're gonna run out of these.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. The real how do you even say that? My God, unlike a small tiny rocket that does not affect our planet that much, space elevator is a planetary scale project.
Well, of course, I mean, you have this.
If we imagine the system itself, right? So there is our planet. There is this huge ass long cable, and the station somewhere in the middle on the geostationary orbit, so that we can actually safely depart, having enough orbital speed not to get the fuck out of the system and not to fall down. Because like the only point of the space elevator that is actually viable for departure, if you're using conventional, the usual standard rocket systems, not the torchlight or something like that. So if we're not able to continuously burn fuel, then the point of altitude of geostationary orbit is the only point when we can depart from the elevator. It has to be bigger to have the counterweight to compensate for every single other part of it that is below geostationary rotating too slowly to remain in orbit. And
that makes sense.
How much is this going to weigh? And if you think realistically about how much this thing is supposed to weigh to be able to stay in its orbit more or less stably without using that much fuel to correct for its errors, and of course to compensate the fact that we are actually moving things up and down. So we are moving mass upwards, which changes its rotational pattern, and then we're moving mass downwards, which changes it again. Does this thing affect Earth's rotation? It does. Does it?
Well, of course it does. Everything that has mass.
Yes.
Everything that has mass affects other stuff that has mass, right?
And that's why
basic physics.
That's why I'm talking about this being a planetary scale project. That unlike a small rocket that is being launched that doesn't weigh that much, this thing is probably going to be comparable to
I mean, if you look at it this way, just hear me out. Just hear me out on this one. You're gonna have the space port at the end of the cable, right? Where everything meets up, where the elevator meets up, right?
Yeah.
Let's just put it this way. Let's leave the physics of the cable alone and any materials that we would need to use it.
This is going to be extremely difficult because that's the main problem, is the weight of the cable itself.
Just hear me out. Okay. So you have this outwards, I don't want to call it centrifugal force, but it's, I think, the best word I can describe it.
Well,
but
it's
not
correct. Centrifugal force.
It's not quite correct. Not quite. I don't know the exact word for it, but I think you get the idea. Where you have the stress that goes downside, obviously, because of gravity.
Yeah.
Because mass attracts mass, right?
Yeah.
Then you have this outside force that is being exerted by Earth's rotation.
Yeah.
Right? Because we're basically a long-ass fucking cable with a spaceport at the end of it.
Yeah.
So you have that upward force, which is gonna tug on the cable, but then again keep weight down, because all that weight from the middle section, where it's a bit wishy-washy, what's going towards the Earth and what's going towards space, right? So you have some weight that's going out towards space, right? That's gonna leave the planet, and some mass is gonna get tugged down towards the Earth, because it has mass.
Yeah. And the general idea is that you have to make it of sufficient length or have a sufficient counterweight on the outward side of the gestationary orbit that it compensates mostly for itself falling down, but it's still going to try and rip itself apart because of this force. Because it's basically a two-body system where we have the small spaceport, which is actually, I think, going to be a rather big spaceport, and a rather big planet, and they are basically rotating around each other, but they are not tucked together by gravity. They are tucked together by a fucking cord. This is basically like if we try to connect Earth and Moon together with a wire and then try to bring them closer and force them to rotate around each other.
Okay, well, if we're talking about Earth and Moon, that's two completely different things. Because first of all, the Moon has a lot more mass that would need to be sustainable.
Yeah, of course, but I don't really.
I get the idea. I get the idea. I get the basic idea of you saying, okay, let's just connect the Earth and the Moon with like a big ass fucking cable, and try to get them closer. I know what you mean by it, but that is such an extreme force that we're talking about. You can't compare that to like maybe a ton to maybe 10. Like we're talking about 10 to 20 tons of a spaceport.
Oh no!
Maybe. No, I don't know the exact figures. I'm just putting out numbers.
We talk about much fucking more.
Like how much more are we talking about then? Give me a number.
Huh? Well, I have to. I think I can even find calculations. I think I can find something that has been already calculated just to not fucking worry.
Okay, let's put it this way. There has been calculations done where you can make a space elevator on the Moon. We're not going to talk about if it makes sense or not. We're just going to talk about the physics about it, right?
Yeah.
You can make a space elevator on the Moon with materials we already have, one of which is Kevlar. You can already make, in theory, a space elevator on the Moon with Kevlar. It's just a question of, like, whole balancing of this system and all this micro debris, like micro meteorites that are going to hit the cable eventually.
Yes, that's of course a problem, but they're going to hit everything. If we have a whole fucking technogenical ring around the planet that is going to be one huge space station, they are as well going to hit the structure.
Of course, but that is also a way stronger structure than some cable.
Oh yeah, but technically the lighter it is, the better it is, and one small fucking hole in everything is blasted into vacuum, basically. That's the usual problem of a space exploration, that there is like a small aluminum, maybe not small, but a medium-sized aluminum ball, and there is vacuum outside, and anything can break through and destroy the crew and the craft itself.
Of course.
And of course, with the cable being smaller, like we're talking like a monomolecular level of being smaller, it is going to be less susceptible to being fucking destroyed by meteorites.
Yeah, but the smaller or the thinner you make the cable, the less weight it can take, or the less stress it can take.
Yeah,
which is an issue. So you need to find the correct balance for it, which to this day has not really yet been calculated because we don't have the material yet that can even sustain it at all.
Yeah, and
without going to like incredibly large dimensions.
We don't even have like a general idea of what would be the best thing, because when it comes to mind, like using a physical cord connecting two things, and it's like the smaller you go, the better, and the better the material in terms of stretching is, the better, and like the carbon fiber, or like in general carbon nanotubes, are a good idea. But then you start thinking about like, what if we don't use a physical material?
What do you mean by that?
I don't know.
Like, give me something so I can grasp the concept. Like, we're not going to use, like, lightsaber technology to connect these two, now are we?
No, we're not going to use lightsaber technology, but...
I mean, it would be
we
awesome,
can use okay, you mentioned Star Wars.
Right.
An attractor beam. Attractor beam, basically.
So... it's pure energy at the end of the day.
Yeah, pure energy. Again, we're not talking physics right now, so no fucking idea how it functions.
We're just grasping a concept that could be possible. Theory. Well, not even in theory. I don't think it's possible, but I like the thought of process, like the brain food.
Yeah, and the main thing is that it doesn't even have to. We are like leaving the concept of space elevator even behind, because if we're using a beam of pure energy, we don't even have to connect the thing. We have to hang it in the geostationary orbit up there. And then we can use the
the
beam of energy to transport things upwards. So like a vehicle that is receiving its energy via like a strong focused laser beam, for example, and transforms it in atmosphere to like, for example, some, I don't know, like a rotary device that propels it.
How would a rotary device?
After that, we can use ion engines or whatever, like or electromagnetic engines that are going to be. We have the whole fucking planet that has a pretty nice magnetic field around it, like a Van Allen belt and everything else. We can basically climb on that eventually.
I mean, we're talking about technology that would be available within the next 1,000 to 2,000 years.
No, much smaller, but yeah,
beyond our lives anyway.
Not tomorrow, definitely. Maybe like in 50 years. When
50 years
in general,
is pretty...
if you have a technology that allows you to transfer energy directly, and a technology that allows you to use a non-propellant engine that basically doesn't consume any resource other than energy, it's not going to be used to create a space elevator. It's going to be used to create a long-term interplanetary mission, first of all. Because if you have a constant power source, it's much different than, relying on usual Kepler mechanics and going for a fucking halfway around the sun slingshot to get somewhere. If you basically we go to the torchlight ships quality already, where you can have an engine that is constantly running. Yeah, that's I've got.
I mean, talking about tracker things just made me just a little thing I wanna like, just a little side note I want to talk about. You probably heard about the whole Dyson sphere thing, right?
Yeah.
Which is obviously not possible because of gravity. It will just be torn down by gravitational forces.
It's possible under the concept of a Dyson ring, which is positioned in the ecliptic
plane. Not even a ring. A ring would also be terribly unstable.
Yeah. Have you read?
We would need to talk about a Dyson swarm, which is much more interesting.
Like independent small crafts that collect energy.
Think of it as this way. Did you ever see that solar energy farm in like South California, I think it is, or something like that, where they have like
what you're talking about,
like a bunch of like a shitload of mirrors,
all that are pointing to a single boiler thing or whatever.
Exactly.
It's
think of it the same way.
Solar panels.
Think of it the same way, but instead we use solar panels and self-replicating machines that can build self-replicating machines, right?
Yeah.
That could, I don't know, that could use the moon or whatever to like take apart the moon or, whatever planet we would need to.
We're talking sci-fi stuff basically right now.
We're talking sci-fi stuff, but it's still interesting to talk about, nonetheless.
Speaking of self-replicating machines, if we have nanobots auto-repair our elevator, it becomes much more viable.
That is actually a really good idea. I like that.
Because nanobots repairing everything is a bad idea, because they are eventually going to like either run out of resources or like start repairing something wrong. But when we have like a whole area of space between Earth and geostationary, which is basically going to be unusable at some point because of the Kessler syndrome, it has a lot of garbage that can be used and dismantled to obtain materials to repair things like the said elevator, maybe something else, and it becomes a much more viable idea suddenly, right?
Right. Makes a lot of sense. Can't argue with that. But again, this Dyson swarm really made me think. It's like when you have these like machines, like we're talking about a couple meters each, right? But you have like a shitload of them. Like we're talking a tremendous amount of them that are just orbiting the sun, and every so often when they come into the way of like collector, right?
Yeah.
You could use that collector, like get that energy, beam it over with smaller beams like laser beams or whatever.
Yeah.
And then collecting all in a really big beam, and think of it as like Star Wars when they're destroying a planet or something. They collect all this energy in a big ass beam and shoot it down.
And send it somewhere.
Send it to the Earth, and then we could collect it at Earth and then use it for our own purposes.
You know what's the best thing about that?
Go for it.
You don't have to beam energy down to the Earth. You don't have to even use like laser beams to do that, because if you have like a huge swarm of things, okay, sudden idea, an asteroid belt, right? there is such a thing, an asteroid belt.
Right.
It doesn't cover the sun for people who are on Earth, because its orbit is more outwards than the Earth's orbit, right?
Right.
If we transform every asteroid into an solar energy gathering device, or maybe not like everyone, but the innermost ones, we don't really have to connect them by laser beams, but we can use something like, I don't know, electromagnetic induction to transfer a certain amount of power. We don't have to transfer all the power. That's the point. We don't.
I mean, we're talking about a vacuum.
Efficiency.
So in a vacuum, what's the
vacuum,
couple things?
Of course, beams of energy. Like it's going to be either laser or maybe even something in, I don't know, maybe even of a shorter frequency.
I mean, what do you think is more efficient, an electromagnetic field or photons? Like, in my opinion,
the same
photons.
By the way,
I know.
Yeah,
we're talking about
I mean what you're talking, like directional or not directional.
Right, because one is going to be scattered, whereas with, for example, like a photon beam, you could
because that's basically the idea, that this is a beam of energy, of photons that are electromagnetic waves that is coherent, and by coherent we mean that it does not spread. And that's the main thing about the fucking laser itself. That's why we differentiate between laser and like a sun lamp.
Right.
Because laser does not spread if it's not in the atmosphere. In a vacuum, laser can go forever until it starts, of course,
encountering in atmospheres.
Yeah, mostly like encountering random hydrogen particles in vacuum, because they still exist there, and at some point it's of course going to start dissipating. But it doesn't really mean a thing if we are talking like super small distances in terms of like a whole space thing. And so why did I say that we don't have to transfer energy to Earth?
Go for it.
Because we can create a colony that is going to rely on this energy source solely, that is still going to be resting on in the asteroid belt, because it's very not very, but it's much easier to make
here's the main
thing
issue.
more structural.
Here's the main issue: we still need an atmosphere to live.
Yeah.
We still need water. We still need water. Some water is gonna get like somehow dissipated or released in some sort or form, and is gonna get lost. It is statistically not possible to get 100% of water that you use, for example, from drinking, air, of course, washing, so on and so forth, to reuse.
Earth is losing atmosphere constantly.
I know, but the Earth is a much larger object.
Yes.
And
but
as far
if
as
we're talking asteroid belt, then we don't have to, like walk on an asteroid and have like an open blue sky above us. We can live inside it. Right. And when this thing becomes more or less artificially structured, so that we don't have like random debris rotating at retarded speeds and random debris flying all over the place, and when this thing has more of a space station ring vibe into it, when the inner ring rotates faster than the outer ring, and it's more or less stable in terms of a single orbit.
Right.
So I mean that like 100,000 asteroids lying in a single orbit behind each other, they are more or less stable. They are going to fluctuate, but we can compensate for that. And that provides a lot of area, a lot of surface area for solar panels, for like I don't know.
Yeah, but why should we use these if we can make them even more perfect by just disassembling
eventually,
asteroids,
of course,
planets?
But you have to have a platform for that.
Of course. I mean,
that's the idea. So we create the
you could use the asteroid belt in the beginning, start getting energy, and use self-replicating robots to make self-replicating robots, right?
Yeah.
Go from there.
Disable and build.
But at some point, you will need to hit that point where you go from I'm gonna use this asteroid to build on top of it to disassembling it and using the material to create something.
Yeah. You have to
make it more efficient, right?
In this light, either you create a lot of small stations that are more or less independent, which are easier to maintain and have no real deal with handling the atmosphere because they are close cycled. Or we're trying to build like a single huge device that is like interconnected. Sorry, I hit the pop filter, that was loud. Okay. Speaking of huge interconnected devices and Dyson spheres and asteroid belts, have you ever read Ringworld?
The what? Sorry?
Ringworld by Larry Niven. Ringworld, yeah.
What about it?
I mean, you read it, right? Or no?
I think so. Depends on what you're talking about. Hold on.
The whole completely scientifically inaccurate fantasy thing.
No, apparently it's a novel that I just googled up.
Yeah. The idea is that there is like a gigantic contraption, basically a Dyson belt that...
Like a Dyson ring kind of thing.
Yeah, ring, sorry. And why did I say belt? I don't know. Like a Dyson ring that rotates around the star. And it's like a giant planet.
Yeah, I'm seeing it right now. It is a very interesting concept, but the mass of this thing is so big.
Yeah, and it has like some pseudo scientific stuff written about it. So like the bottom area is created of some super rigid and powerful material, like something monomolecular esque, whatever, and like it never gets damaged, and then it finally gets damaged, and it causes problems, etc. I
mean, I like the idea of it, but at the end of the day, you're probably better off. Like, I don't want to talk about it ever again, but you're probably better off making like a flat Earth than a ring. No bullshit, I think you're better off doing that than a flat ring. Or even colonizing Mars.
Basic idea is don't fuck with gravity.
Basically.
Like the basic idea, because you're always better off not fucking with gravity rather than trying to do something.
Yeah, remember kids, don't fuck with gravity. Gravity will fuck with you.
Yeah, exactly. Why would you like build a ring if you can build a ball and make it orbit around the sun?
Why even bother making something when there's something already exists?
Yeah,
like
exactly.
Mars.
Like Mars or like Saturn.
Or
sorry,
actually,
not Saturn, but like Europa or Titan,
actually, now talking about planets, let's go to TRAPPIST.
Oh yeah, that's rather
the big news from NASA where they found planets in a habitable zone 40-something light years.
It was like 4 months ago, right? Only.
I think a couple of months ago. Not sure when, but a couple of months ago.
I remember missing this event completely because I was drinking, and then I came back 3 days later and found out that wow, like a discovery of the century, and I missed it because I was drunk. That was rather inconvenient.
I know I saw it when it came up, and everybody started making memes about it. It's like, okay, Trump got elected. Oh, we found TRAPPIST-1. Let's get the hell out of here.
Yeah. That was a thing.
I found that super hilarious when they put that out. Like, I found that incredibly funny, and I'm still laughing about it to this day. But this is one of the things, you know, where we would really need to think about it twice before we do it. Because I don't know if you saw the anime Across Frontier.
No.
Very well-known anime where they have basically a big-ass fucking flat Earth spaceship, kind of.
Oh, and it's like going through...
It's going through space and it's going to the core, right?
Oh, yeah.
To the core of our
the generally
galaxy.
known concept. Yeah, like an arc ship.
Kind of like an arc ship, yeah. That's why it's called Across Frontier, like the frontier.
Fuck. I didn't even I think you hear what you said. That I was like I didn't hear what exactly you pronounce. No, I didn't see it, but I know about it. Yeah.
So you can grasp the basic concept of it.
Yeah.
So it kind of reminded me of that, where it's like, if you're really gonna do it, we need to come up with some next level fucking shit before we do it.
Yeah.
Or like start colonizing Mars and like habitating Mars properly, where we can like restore the full cycle of life on Mars again, right? Or again, that is, we will leave that out of question now, but you get the idea. I didn't want to say.
Yeah, and even
again,
like, why fuck with Mars when we can go to Europa, for example, when
Fair
there's
enough.
plenty of water, and etc. Like I have the general, mindset of a Factorio player. Why would you go somewhere far away from here when you have a lot of resources right there? Why would you go farther when you can, like, it's right around the corner, basically?
Fair enough. But then again, it comes down to, like, do you want to have a planet with a lot of water, but an atmosphere you never could live in? That you can't also, like, you can never transform the atmospheres.
Or do you want to have a cold fucking planet full of sand, but with decent atmosphere that they can maybe breathe with a filter?
Right, yeah. And then over time, you could go to Europa. Here's an idea. Why not go to Europa, like, mine Europa, per se? It sounds really stupid now when I say it out loud.
Actually, viable, because you get water from there, like ice, and you launch huge ice comets using like something like a mass drive, for example.
Or just take the whole fucking planet.
Yeah, basically, use a planetary engine. Why not? Like, if we're talking about that level of things, you use a planetary engine, you move Europa.
Let's make it simple. Let's use a fucking engine that moves the whole fucking planet out of orbit. That makes a lot of sense.
Europa isn't even that big. It's not like
it's not that big. It's actually, isn't it considered a satellite?
By the way, using whole Saturn's atmosphere to move Saturn. Nice idea.
Yeah.
Because, like gaseous stuff that can be burned eventually.
I mean, you can put it in a bathtub and it will swim, so that's a thing. Just a little side note about it. But now thinking about it, there's like planetary engine. Like, how would this even work?
Well, it works the way you expect it to work. You have a huge fucking funnel. You pump oxygen into it, and you pump hydrogen into it, and then you light it on fire, and eventually it starts fucking burning because, well, Europa is made out of water, and then you crack water into oxygen and hydrogen and use that to...
That's where you need the Dyson sphere to get the energy from.
Yeah, exactly.
There you go.
Let's fucking re-engineer the whole solar system at once. Why not?
Oh, man. I just love the idea of, like, just picture an alien organization looking, like, through space and seeing us move a whole fucking planet. They would be like, how fucking retarded are these guys?
They probably would be like, oh, no, let's not fuck with them, or, like, even, let's go give them a better technology to do that. Seriously. Until they fucking kill themselves.
Like, they feel, then you start, like, finding aliens that feel really sad about you and how you're doing things.
Yeah, like, really sad and sorry.
Like, some like, kid in school that's eating glue, and you need to take the glue off of him.
Yeah. It's not like even eating glue, because it makes sense, but, like, hammering something with a microscope, hammering a nail with a microscope using the usual metaphor. And you're just like, no, you don't use the microscope like that. Put it down. Here,
oh, man. Hammer. I'm just picturing some, like, really serious science dude with, like, big-ass glasses, like, sitting in his office with his microscope, a piece of wood and a nail, and trying to, punch down that nail into that wood with his microscope, and I'm just sitting there in the background, just, like, laughing my ass off. Oh, that's a picture I won't get out of my head easily.
Moving Europa with a planetary engine is more of an opposite picture. It's like you're trying to operate the person using, like, a hacksaw and I don't know.
I just love the idea of
fucking hammer and trying to
I just love the idea of it. Just picture how it would look like.
Yeah. Well, I don't really have to picture because I...
Like, what else do we want to do? Like, make, like, big, giant googly eyes and put it on the planet as well while we're at it.
Why not? Or better off, like, carve out a face on the planet.
Yeah, make it.
All right, they already did that in the last fucking Guardian movie.
Like, in the future, we're gonna start carving planets into, like, planet pumpkins.
Into memes.
For Halloween.
Basically.
Oh, man.
Can you imagine, like, dick butt drawn on the surface of Europa, for example? With a giant laser beam.
Actually, this reminds me, yesterday evening I was bored and I started rewatching Hancock. Genius movie, by the way. Love that movie. It just reminded me of that, where Hancock goes to the moon and, like, makes this giant ass heart, right? Just reminded me of that. Yeah. That's amazing. Just reminded me of, like, instead of seeing the heart, seeing a dick butt on the moon. That's like a marketing campaign. What else do we want to put on it? Like a 9gag logo as well, while we're at it?
Do you know that 9gag actually created a fucking monolith of memes and buried it somewhere in the desert?
Really?
Yes.
Oh my god, that's amazing.
So, I think it was a public voting. They've chosen, like, top 100 or something like that.
Dick Butt is in there, 100%.
Of course, Dick Butt is in there. It's like in the
probably
middle, I think.
Probably Leo as well, and, like,
I think it's mostly everything you can name. I didn't even recognize half of those, actually.
I'm actually really curious right now. Hold on.
Just Google that.
9gag monolith. Hold on. I'm incredibly curious now. Oh my god, they actually did it. 9gag built a shrine dedicated to meme culture and buried it in the desert.
Yeah, I think you
That
can
is
find a
amazing.
picture and look at it.
Oh my god.
Can you imagine, like, 1,000 years later, scientists find this thing, and they're looking at it and thinking, what the fuck? We're not, like...
This reminds me.
Our ancestors really that fucking retarded, right?
Oh my god.
By the way, yeah, it reminds me of what?
Do you remember this NWO shit that was making its round in like 2009? There was like a New World Order monolith. Just reminded me of it.
No.
Where like somehow this thing started existing. Nobody knows when it started, but it has like it has it in German, Chinese, English, you know, all the main
like the
languages.
Guidestones.
Yeah. Where it stands like the New World Order shit, where it stands like no more than 500 million people on the planet and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I'm currently looking at this thing. I'm not sure if that is the exact thing that you're talking about, but I can grasp the concept. Because, you know, that's what people do. That's what internet does to people. Because it makes things much easier to sync up and communicate to each other and create these retarded things.
I mean, I kind of get the idea of it, but at the end of the day, what do you want to do? We are, at the end of the day, a species that will evolve and go further if we don't die trying, you know, during our lifetime. And
you mean the New World Order's idea, or the creating random garbage and spreading it around the planet idea? Because I'm talking about creating like these things in general.
Yeah, well, these things in general is another thing, but just talking about this New World Order thing in general is like, why do you wanna like take humanity and tell it what to do with a fucking piece of stone? Like, how retarded are you?
Just for the lols. Just because there is enough people that are going to believe this thing.
I mean, because, obviously. Like, I'm talking about it more as a joke, as like saying, it's like, this is the most stupidest thing I've ever seen, because it doesn't make any sense. But there's people that take it actually serious. It's like, like, how stupid can you be to take a fucking piece of stone that somebody has chiseled out during their, like, oh, I was bored, so I just chiseled in some New World Order shit into a stone and buried it somewhere.
Yeah, people can take things seriously pretty easily, and even like things that are, you know, low effort jokes basically. And you know, speaking of it, I have a very good friend that usually like once every few months comes up with an amazing idea how to fuck with the world in general.
Yeah,
like how to create like a whole secret organization that is dedicating to some shady stuff, and then like make everyone think that this is the right way to live, and then like destroy something, etc. And these plans, they are not easy. They are not like that primitive and simple, like creating a stone and putting it in the desert. They actually involve like hard work and decades of dedication. And the main thing that if he ever does one of those, I think it might work. I mean maybe. Considering how stupid people are, it actually might work.
Well, people are pretty fucking stupid, to be fair.
So
I'm not saying we're not any smarter, but
yeah,
at the end of the day, humanity is a big pile of meat, that blood, that it's pretty fucking stupid. To be fair, we're talking about the larger picture.
The more people you gather, the less intellect they actually possess.
Yeah, it's actually pretty sad. It's pretty sad.
Well, it's impossible for it to be otherwise until we talk like something like a collective hive mind sort of thing, because we are all limited with our communication protocol, basically. You know, moving our throat to create sound waves is kind of fucking retarded, by the way. in general, like in terms of efficiency and speed of communication, and trying to act as a single being instead of being a crowd, it doesn't really help that
no,
humans communication protocol is not the best.
Not really, no.
And yeah, I'm not high, by the way.
Yeah, we're not high. We're totally not high. We're just talking about random stuff right now. Like, yeah. I didn't want to really talk about this New World Order shit, but it just came into my mind when we're talking about the 9-gag monolith. Just made me laugh and just reminded me of this, and I just find it as a... Like, for me, personally, this is just... This thing, this NWO shit, is just a big-ass joke, and somebody was bored and started chiseling out this shit on like, a really big piece of stone, just buried it somewhere. It was like... That's probably gonna convince some fucking idiots on this planet.
Of course. Especially, again, now that the internet exists. And you can spread the information everywhere. And now that the internet exists, you don't even have to, like, create anything. You can basically fake a photo, and then create enough informational noise around it so that it's unrecognizable whether this thing is fake or real.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's usually what happens. And it's like... The main idea of hiding information in the modern age is creating enough noise around it. I mean, like noise, not
like
hype,
garbled information.
Yeah, like garbage.
Oh,
because you don't even have to encrypt anything if you just can't hide it. If you can't find this thing, if you can't recognize whether this is true or wrong.
Let's transition over, because speaking about encryption and decryption, WannaCry. Everybody heard about it. You heard about it? And
it's interesting topic to discuss, that's for sure.
Oh yeah, it will bring us perfectly into our new segment, into a segment about technology, or real life technology. So let's talk about WannaCry and how much it actually affected, because I find that very interesting. Like how much it actually affected, and it's still not over. A lot of people believe like, oh, this kill switch has been engaged, so it's over. It's not. There's already a second version out. Like, the second version was probably out, like,
before
couple
the
minutes.
Kill switch was activated.
Like, before the other one was even activated.
Yeah.
For all we know. They were just waiting for somebody to find that address.
There's 5 versions of this thing that do different things and use different access points, because the main thing with this WannaCry is it using the SMB error is not the main problem. Main problem is that it's a fucking ransomware that self-replicates.
Exactly, that's the issue a lot of people get. I actually just recently watched a video about it, how it is trying to self-propagate. A lot of people think, oh, it's only gonna propagate from my computer to, like, I don't know, my laptop on my laptop on my Wi-Fi as well. No, that's not true. It's actually trying to propagate through your router, through your ISP to another computer on the internet. That is what a lot of people don't realize. It's trying to find something on your network. For example, a communication server on your ISP, and goes from that, like DNS server or whatever. Any case could be, or a peer-to-peer connection in an online game or whatever. It's trying to find a host, or a client, rather, that could be infected, and goes from there. That's what a lot of people don't get, that this is a worm ransomware that can self-replicate, and a lot of people don't realize that if you're just like, oh, I don't care about my data. Well, you might not care, but somebody on the internet might care, and I'm one of those people that do care.
Yeah, so. And there is also like one thing that can calm down a lot of people. There is a certain state of your network that can make it relatively safe. So if you're
using a VPN, you should be. Most
don't really know.
They tried it with a VPN, and it actually had problems propagating through a VPN, because on a VPN the port 445,
because some people block this fucking port. That's all.
The VPNs block this port because they know it's vulnerable, right? So the VPNs just block it.
And that's what I wanted to talk about. Like, if you have a router,
right?
And like your, like family network, for example, you have your laptop, you have your gaming PC, you have your mother's working PC, and whatever, like, and they are all open. But if your router is closed, if it has the 445 like shut down,
right, the port is closed, right?
The port is closed. There is no way this thing can get in.
No.
If you are not running it yourself, it cannot get in.
No, if you're stupid enough to actually open an email attachment from somebody you don't know,
then everything is going to be infected inside the system, but it's not going to go out if the 445 is blocked.
That's correct. Unless you have a direct peer-to-peer connection.
Well, yet again.
But that is a direct peer-to-peer, not through a host, which in this case is the router, obviously. So I find this very interesting. I find this very interesting how it propagates.
Yeah, like one guy from, I don't really even remember, like some university, I think in Britain, explained how actually this thing works, and he like told, yes, I ran it on my virtual machine, but I never opened it in my university network, because even though our university's like main exit point has 445 blocked, if somebody gets an email or runs this file, like for example on a USB flash with, of course, root privileges, everything is fucked at the same, like immediately.
Exactly.
So you have to not contaminate your system from the inside and block it from the outside, and then you're safe.
Pretty much. I mean, on top of all of that, if you really want to be secure, there's also stuff like, I personally use 3 different antivirus programs, personally. One of which is Malwarebytes free anti-ransomware, which is, by the way, a really good anti-ransomware because of it doesn't protect you from known, like it doesn't protect you from known ransomware, which is why you need other antiviruses. But it's one of those things where it's like, oh, I detect a change in these files, so I'm just gonna block everything.
Launch this? Right? I think you don't. And it tells you to not to launch the file if it thinks that it is corrupted.
No, it will. You can launch the file. It will try to encrypt your files. Basically, what a ransomware does is it copies your file, encrypts it, and deletes the original. Right.
Yeah.
So the software, what it will do is, whenever it finds it that it's trying to, like, every so often, I don't know, a couple times per second or something, and it sees a change in files, where it sees, oh, okay, this file has been copied, or this program is trying to do something to this file, which it shouldn't do. It's gonna be like, hold on, I'm gonna kill it. Because this program can act in nanoseconds.
So it basically detects a ransomware-like behavior, and immediately kills the process, and possibly doesn't allow it to actually delete the original file.
Yes, you will be stuck with, like, maybe you will get the text file, like the ransom note and all that kind of garbage, but you can get rid of that easily. That's not a big problem. You know, then you can use an antivirus software to get rid of it.
Yeah. Because
you can record the hash code of the program. You can record it, tell the virus, delete these files, and then we'll delete them, right? Then you have this extra security where, like, okay, for known malware, or ransomware, or whatever, it will block it directly. And for unknown ones, like 0-day, like if we're talking 0-day malware, like, or 0-day ransomware, it can detect it behaviorally, not perfect by any means, but pretty well. And you will still have your original files and maybe some decrypted copies, which you can just delete, which you don't need to care about.
Yeah.
Which is one of the things I love. So using, like, something like Malwarebytes or some other kind of software, like specific 0-day anti-ransomware and an antivirus on top, as well as using Windows Defender and staying updated, all that kind of stuff, and, you know, doing your backups and all that kind of stuff, you should be 99.99999% you should be fine. If you're being careful enough. And then on top, just be a normal human. Think twice before you click about stuff.
Yeah, because eventually just the human factor in general is the biggest vulnerability in every system.
Of course.
People don't really think. But, you know, like, multiple layers of security is a nice thing, but they also limit your experience. So it's like, you know, wearing 3 layers of condoms is not really better than wearing 1 condom.
No, but really, you're going about it. You're going about physics here. This is just software. Obviously, I'm getting some slowdowns, but even then I can be like, I'm not downloading anything at the moment, so I can just, you know, minimize it. Or...
Yeah, but if you don't have any false alarms, then it's awesome.
Sorry?
For sure. If you don't have any false alarms?
No. So until now, I'm running
like random stuff.
I'm running. I have this Windows 10 since January this year. freshly installed because I was getting sick of Windows 7 and I needed to upgrade it. So I installed Windows 10, right? So I got this anti-ransomware from Malwarebytes, installed it, and until the day, I didn't have any false alarms. I didn't have any actual alarms because I'm actually a smart internet user and I know what the fuck I'm doing.
Yeah.
And I'm not just downloading some random garbage. And I'm fine. And even on top of all of that, I had a virus once, unfortunately, where I was stupid enough to download something, and it saved my ass having an antivirus run in the back. Yeah. So it's not that stupid of an idea actually doing it.
Antivirus, I personally think that having a constant background check going, like not the thing that you occasionally run to check your files, but a constant,
like a constant, like something that keeps up with what you're doing.
Yeah, basically an antivirus daemon running is a good idea, and it's basically a must-have on every machine, especially if you're running Windows. It's not necessary to use like the biggest fucking thing like Kaspersky, for example.
No, you don't need to go. Avira. Like I personally use AVG.
Avira is fine. Like okay.
Avira, AVG. Don't go for McAfee or Norton because they usually have a shitload of adware, junkware that you don't need.
They often want money, and Avira is free.
Yeah, they're more junk than anything. So just go with something. Even Hitman Pro is actually a really good program.
Yeah,
and it is free as well.
Most users don't really need that much functionality from the antivirus. They need like a background check going. They need to be able to do a quick scan and a full scan. That's all you need. Especially everything else can be handled by Windows because Windows has a pretty good firewall itself.
It has a
Windows Defender is the thing.
It's not perfect by any means, but it's decent.
It can save your ass, basically.
It can save your ass, yes. Have that running as well. If you really want to, you can also use something like Spybot. What was it? Anti-Spybot Beacon or something. What's the name of the program?
Maybe.
Where it like blocks all communication to Microsoft, so you still are safe. So like Microsoft can't spy on you, which I actually installed yesterday, funnily enough.
Yeah. And by the way, I'm using like not like stock version of Windows 7. I think it's Ultimate with the service pack from April 2015, something like that, like right before the security update came in.
Right.
I've actually found that and downloaded it because I had to do something when I was installing an operating system on my new PC. And it serves me fine. I disabled the update manager completely because it, if you don't install updates for a certain period of time, it starts fucking with the system. It gets huge performance hits because it's constantly trying to download more, and it can't allow itself to do that because there are a lot of temporary files, etc. So
yeah, that's about that.
Yeah, just like be a smart human. Have something running in the background that checks stuff. Don't have your fucking router open like a. Let's not,
Yeah, don't try to be a Google data center, basically. I mean, I could be in theory a Google data center with my internet, but I'm just not gonna do it because I'm a smart human being, and I want to stay safe on the fucking internet.
Yeah, and in general, if you want to have like something that can be publicly accessed inside your private network, you want it to be on a separate machine, a separate router, or at least use a separate tunnel for that.
Yeah.
So like have
you can even buy like a $5 or $10 switch if you really wanted to.
Yeah. That actually helps. But on the other hand, I've been running like a TeamSpeak server on my laptop for 2 years or something, and I didn't have a single problem with that. Because I've used like some random port that nobody fucking uses, and it only opened when the internal request was sent, so it wasn't constantly open. It was open only for the program. I had to fuck around a little bit setting that up, but it was fine.
I mean, if it works, it gets the job done.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't recommend it. Let's be fair. I wouldn't recommend running a server 24/7 in your own home.
Of course I wasn't running it 24/7. I was running when I was talking to people.
Yeah, of course.
Because we didn't have Discord at the time. That's basically the problem.
Like, Discord is 2 years old now, by the way.
Yeah, and Discord is like the best thing in the universe, not sponsored, etc.
Yeah. I mean, I'm kind of paying for it. I have Discord Nitro.
Oh, yeah, I don't. I don't, and I'm perfectly fine with that.
Yeah, hey. I only get a fancy GIF avatar. So.
Fucking damn it. Now I want to pay for it. They know, like they know how to get money from people.
I mean, to be fair, it's purely cosmetic. And even if you wanted to change your Discord, which I can add a screenshot of my Discord to the show note.
Yeah, I saw that in your thing, by the way.
Yeah, you can do custom CSS.
That's rather fancy.
Do that. It's pretty fucking fancy. I love it.
Yeah, that's like, I think this is literally the best concept about software creation. When your software is free, but just for the looks, you can pay the money. And if you make the, if you make it as customizable as anyone can want, and as easy to use for that customization, so that anyone can do that, people are going to pay money for that, because people buy skins in games.
Yeah, like, okay, talking about skins, perfect intro to that.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that. So
I like my transitions. This is awesome. I recently sold all my CSGO skins. So that's a thing.
You're not playing competitive anymore.
No, I uninstalled CSGO, I uninstalled Rocket League, and I uninstalled Overwatch as well. I'm done with competitive games.
The reason for that was?
I was kind of getting sick of the whole toxic community behind this whole stuff. It's like you sit there and you're just like, dude, can you just not do that because it's kind of stupid and you could do this to make it better? And he's like, yo, fuck you, suka bliet, you come against this kind of stuff where you're like, come on, man. I just want to have a good game. I want to teach you how to play better because I know how to play better because I'm smurfing. For example, in Overwatch, right?
Yeah.
And they're just going to turn you down and you're just like, oh god fucking damn it. You know what? Fuck it. I'm done. And I just went like, you know what? I'm going to play my last 2 games, which I did actually. I won both of them in CSGO. Did my last 2 games. I was like, okay, I'm done. I'm happy. I had fun with the game. I had like, what do I have? Like 700 hours in CSGO and like 300 hours in Overwatch.
That's quite a lot, basically, yeah.
Yeah.
And the problem is that it's not even the competitive side. It's like that any game that has multiplayer and, 2 different sides or multiple different sides becomes competitive at some point.
Yeah.
Even people don't compete for points. They compete like for their dick size, basically, who's better at the game. And it really makes the community toxic in general.
Yeah, especially like for me, like I said, I sold my CSGO skins. I had like one op skin on CSGO that was like 500 or 600 bucks.
Yeah.
For those who were interested, that's the Up Medusa in well-worn condition. I had that, and every time, like I'm playing low level. I was like Gold Nova 1, Gold Nova 2. And at that low level, people don't expect to see these high-tier skins. Right?
Yeah, even though they're completely random, by the way.
Even though they're completely random. So I just went like, you know what, this whole toxicity pisses me off. I'm gonna sell all these skins and buy a new phone. Which I actually did. I ordered it today.
Actually makes some sense, because having an actual phone it makes more sense than having like some digital data.
Because my old phone, while I was working at a beer company last year, my old phone fell from the forklift. It broke. Couldn't use it anymore.
Painful.
And since then, I'm using this HTC One M7, which is like 3.5 years old, and it just can't do jack shit anymore because I unplugged it like 4 hours ago, and I'm already like almost at 5% battery. Actually, I'm gonna need to plug it in.
You have to just change your accumulator, I think. Help me. I'm using Samsung Galaxy, like it's like I think 6 years old already.
Holy shit!
It runs like one program. I can run WhatsApp on it and VK. That's all it can do, and I'm fine with that because, well, I can call people, I can message people. That's everything I need. But yeah, I do really understand the feel when you actually need a new fucking phone.
Yeah, it's not just about that. Like, I'm personally this kind of guy. I love, like, when I'm on the train, going to work, so on and so forth, or just smoking a cigarette in the kitchen, you know?
Yeah.
I can just go for it, you know? I don't need to have to worry about my battery.
Yeah, using things that don't actually require you to fucking worry about them functioning properly, that's very cool.
So yeah, with me having sold all my skins and being done with competitive gameplay, made good money out of it. Bought my phone. Will be coming this Tuesday. I'm happy about it. You wanna know what phone I bought?
Yeah, I wanna know what phone you bought, of course.
Of course. I bought the Sony Xperia Z5, which was actually my old phone that I broke. That I mentioned earlier.
Xperia Z5. I have no idea what it is actually, but I'm looking at it right now. Looks fancy.
Yeah, octa-core. Very good phone. I was very happy with it. Unfortunately, it broke, like I said.
Looks like it has a pretty good camera.
Yeah, the camera's actually.
And the only problem that I see is the fucking screen. That can be broken by anything. Once you...
Yeah, it's a bit wishy, especially because I didn't have a case for it that time around. This time I'm actually smart enough to buy a case, so I bought that as well.
Yeah, the case usually saves.
Yeah.
In dire situations. By the way, that Samsung that I was talking about,
right. Yeah,
it's like a fucking brick. I mean, it's not big, but the idea is that the screen is like small relative to the general case of the phone, and it's
it has like a giant border.
Well, yeah, it has a border and it has rounded edges, so it can't really fall on an edge. So any way it falls, the the force is being, the impulse is being spread across the whole case. So basically, the backplate is cracked and broken and can't hold well, but the phone itself is fine.
Well, that's the idea. This is one of the issues with unibodies actually, because the Sony C5 and my HTC One M7 both have unibodies where you can't take off the back cover unless you start really like going with a knife at it.
Yeah, and you can't replace your accumulator. That's also a big problem, because my accumulator started to tell me that he's fucking done with the job and is not going to do anything anymore. And about, I think, 6 months after I got this phone, it was a used phone, of course, because, well, my cousin gave it to me. I just said, do you have any spare phones? She said like, yeah, of course, here's one. And I was like, okay, fine. And then I had to buy a couple of spare accumulators on AliExpress.
It's still cheaper. I mean, it's not perfect, but I guess it's still cheaper than buying it new, I guess.
Yeah, I'm thinking like, if I have like spare money, and by spare money I mean like real spare money, which I'm not going to use to buy like more computer parts or better equipment or maybe like necessary clothing or anything else. When I have like really spare money, I might want to buy a phone. But the question is, like, do you really want to go for the latest generation, super slim, super colorful, super expensive thing? If you're really going to be using it like a phone.
To be fair, this is only Xperia Z5, for example. It's not the newest phone on the market, but I know it's a good phone. I know it's a fast phone, and I know it can do almost everything I want it to do, which is basically listen to music, watch YouTube videos, and watch Crunchyroll. For me, anyway.
Yeah, and sometimes use Discord and maybe something like Facebook. And
well, I
can do that Facebook, well.
So for me, it's Twitter.
Yeah, okay, maybe Twitter. Just basically having a good screen is really important nowadays. That's my general opinion.
Yeah, which is why I like that phone so much. Even like my old Z5 that that broke, I gave that to my uncle and I said, like, if you want to repair it and have it, take it.
Yeah, and screen replacement can be pretty expensive, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, the screen itself was fine, just the glass.
Oh, well, the glass broke. On the other hand, they can sometimes also charge extra for repairing the glass, especially if this is an old model.
I mean, he can repair phones himself, so I'm not too worried about that. It's just a thing of like... But you still have
to buy the glass.
Right.
And it can cost like $50 or $100. And it's still cheaper
Which
than
is still cheap
phone.
enough, to be fair. Yep. Because it works perfectly fine, right?
You know, now that I remember replacing the screen and the keyboard for my laptop in the like a few years ago, and it costs like half a fucking laptop. So yeah, that's much cheaper than buying half a phone. Just replacing the glass is much easier.
Yeah, especially because like he's my uncle, he lives in Macedonia, so you know the average wage is really low, right?
Yeah.
So I basically told him, if you want to have a new phone, here's mine that broke. Unfortunately, I have money to buy a new one.
Yeah. And
I knew I was gonna sell my CS:GO skins at some point, right? And this point was 2 days ago. I just got the money yesterday and I bought the phone today. Basically told him, if you want to have it, go for it. The only thing you need to know is you need to buy a new charger and you need to replace the screen yourself. Then you can have it. Do whatever you want. Just wipe it clean before you do. Because there is still some stuff on there. Some like screenshots of like passwords that I don't use anymore, so I already changed them, so it's not a big deal, but you know, it still makes me a little bit sad. Because I couldn't delete or retransform the phone because the screen was broken, so I couldn't do jack shit with it.
Yeah, so basically, please do a factory reset and don't watch any of my porn.
Basically.
That's the usual stuff. Yeah.
I mean, at least it's good porn. So.
Oh, to be honest, yeah, that's... Well, maybe he wouldn't even delete it. Maybe he would just like use it. Let's not talk about that stuff, okay? That's like a little bit over the top, I think.
Yeah, it's more of a joke anyway. So I don't have porn. I stream it. Jokes aside, he's happy about it. So, I'm happy about it as well.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, he has a new phone. I'm getting a new phone. I'm happy. Gonna unbox it on my stream, which is gonna be fun. Speaking about streams, both our links are gonna be down below, so feel free to check them out.
Yeah, anyway, if you're interested in what we are doing on those streams and what games we are playing. And speaking of games, what are you going to play now that you've deleted every single game that you have in possession except Factorio?
Well, you just mentioned a game.
Yeah.
I got some plans for Factorio. We got some plans for Factorio, maybe.
Yeah, speaking of plans for Factorio, what about a multiplayer series?
That's what I wanted to touch on. Before we get into that, though, I want to have a quick reroute, and I want to talk about the Friday facts.
Oh, yeah. I completely forgot about that. It's a good thing that you mentioned them.
Yeah, I don't forget that. Where's the blog? Friday facts 191. I'm going to give you the link.
Yeah, I already opened that.
Alrighty, so I gave it a quick read, and basically what they were talking about is how your hotbar will work, and how game design is, shit, and how they're losing people, and how they're hiring, and all that kind of stuff. I already talked to you about them hiring.
Yeah, I read the article already, like on Friday, I think, before I left my apartment. I
don't know what to think about it. I like if you look at the GIF that they have like at the bottom of this blog post, I like the idea of it.
Yes.
I don't know how it will work out though.
It's a hard question, to say the least.
It's a very difficult question. I just want to speculate a little bit about it.
In general, I like this exact blog post because it touches on topics that most people are unaware of. Like, it touches on topics that are not directly related to the final product that is going to be released to public. Because almost every single Friday Facts talks about like
stuff about
additions to the game, like improvements to the game, bug fixing, new features,
optimization, new stuff, like the new uranium reactor, for example, new uranium ore, and all that kind of stuff. But this time they're actually talking about something more deeply settled within Factorio, which is still an issue,
like the
UI.
And like even the team related stuff that they're talking about, we've got that professional guy that was supposed to fix things, but he didn't. That's why we fired him, basically. Well, he left, but whatever. And then, speaking about this whole concept of being user friendly and people getting used to garbage because they don't have a choice, and then refusing to use like better things because they're already used to them, and it's like the general problem of human psychology.
It's a general problem about game design. Like if you're looking at, for example, Minecraft, which has a very, very strict inventory system, very basic inventory and crafting system, whereas Factorio is way more complex in that, where you have the logistics system, you have the crafting menu, you have your inventory, you have the armor inventory which is also kind of a bit weird.
Speaking of from a perspective of a person who actually coded a couple of inventory mods, specifically the now outdated battery storage tanks mod that allow you to pick up storage tanks with liquid inside them and retain this liquid in the system. You could basically pick up a whole tank full of oil and plug it somewhere else, and it was very hard to code. It didn't have any practical purpose. It was just me learning Lua. But
I mean,
people downloaded that mod. It has like a few thousand downloads eventually.
I mean, it's a very interesting idea. I would probably install it, to be fair, because it seems one of those things where it's like, well, it kind of makes sense, right?
4.14. It's kind of buggy, and it's 4.14. But the idea.
Well,
is
about
that,
the concept. Just the concept in itself is very Factorial-like, where it's like, oh yeah, this makes sense. You know?
Just pick up things and carry them around, because why not, right? Because we can pick up trains, and why can't we pick up storage tanks? Why do we have to pour everything out of
But
the
then
system
again, if you're starting to talk about like picking up chests with items in it, then we kind of get a loophole.
Yeah, but
where you can like pick up a chest and put that in a chest.
From a game designing perspective, picking up a chest with contents is much harder, because you have to store a separate data structure somewhere with its contents.
Right, which is one of the things.
Storage tank has an internal parameter. Storage tank item has an internal parameter that can be fucking used to do this. Can you imagine this? So, not exactly. I used like a code that was used for tools, like for repair packs and.
So you're using like damage values.
Durability,
yeah,
because it
like
retains
durability
it
values
health.
instead.
Like health is a separate value, and there is durability. And I had to like swap things out and around and store them in a separate data. But anyway, that was the point when I had to really fuck with the inventory system, because there are like basically there's a string that contains. It's not like a string. How do you fucking call this data structure in English? I don't even remember. Oh my god! Like basically an array. Yeah, an array of inventories.
Right.
And you link to them by their numbers. So there is no enumerator in the system, for those who know what I'm talking about. You can't like you can't call an inventory by its name using that data structure. You can call a certain inventory by its name using a function from the general. So it's bad, basically. It was bad. And it has 7 different inventories. Some of which are not even existent at some points. For example, logistics stretch slots appears at a random point, and it's like something game inventory.7 or whatever that is. And the fact that they are completely removing the concept of having multiple inventory data structures is fucking amazing from modding perspective, and it's fucking amazing from game design perspective, because there's going to be no more uncertainties concerning the whole inventory system. That's the basic idea of that. And this is the best thing that happens, that you don't have to guess what is going to happen when you put an item into your inventory. You don't have to guess what's going to happen when you craft the item. You don't have
and
to
at the end of the day, you could even make like your own inventories. If you really wanted to. Yeah. Like, it kind of reminds me of Minecraft, where they, I think 2 years ago, or a year ago or something, and they said, okay, you can like pick up chests with the items in it in creative mode.
Yes.
Right? And then when you start duplicating these chests, and stacking them with like
I saw that video.
To stack. From there's an Ant Venom made a beautiful video about it, how this can like really result in issues with like RAM usage, where it can just overflow the RAM because
Java doesn't efficiently collect the garbage. Basically, that's the problem with Java. But yeah, that's the problem with
any kind of code will run into that problem at some point.
Yes,
it's just a question of how big that problem is. Like
at all.
Yeah, and Factorio does it really well, which is nice. Which is why we can have like multiple hundreds of thousands of entities. By entities, I mean like stuff like iron plates, copper plates, and all that kind of stuff, like on a belt, because of how intelligently they're doing it.
Yeah, the data structure is small. It contains a lot of information, but the data structure itself is small, and this is amazing. And speaking of Minecraft and inventory systems, do you remember like the gradual change in inventory management in Minecraft? Like they added shift dragging, they added control clicking, and like in 1.0 you had to manually click everything to craft, and now people like click and drag, and it's 10 times faster. And when it was introduced into the game, first people were raging about it like crazy, like why the fuck would you do that? And it was only one single change, and here we have like a complete fucking overhaul of the whole system.
Nobody's saying jack shit about it. I mean, a lot of people actually, I personally really like where they're going with it, because it introduces a new way of thinking about inventories, especially in Factorio. Like now, like talking about Factorio, because the current UI is not very, I will say directly, noob friendly. It took me a little bit. It's not intuitive. It took me a little while to get used to it.
To be honest, it's like it's counterintuitive, most of the things, especially like the armor slots and weapon slots and quick bar. They are so fucking counterintuitive.
It sort of makes sense, but it also like it makes less sense than it makes sense. If you get what I mean?
Yes, it makes sense from the perspective of creating a concept of a game. When you just mock up some things and they function, yeah, that makes sense from that perspective. But now the game is closing to the release version, and that's why they are revamping this, because the new inventory system looks like an actual, a good game inventory system. It has like different tabs in it. It's simple, it's intuitive. You can do everything. You don't have to like go Google what would happen if I set a filter to this or to that, or what would happen if I shift click this garbage and it doesn't shift click at all, right?
Right, or like remembering recipes or stupid shit like that, which always annoyed me in Minecraft.
Yeah, and by the way, like only thing I'm going to miss, I think, with this system is the quick bar / tool belt being like a secure part of your inventory that you can't get rid of accidentally when you shift click a chest or control click a chest. Sorry.
That is actually one of the things I think they will keep, because it's something so usable and so user friendly. And I found it personally very intuitive. That your hotbar will not change.
You know what might be a good idea code-wise? So,
go for it.
Who exactly wrote the blog post? Twinson wrote that that they are making a tool belt more of a filter system rather than an actual inventory, right? So it's going to have a
link so you can filter items before you even research.
The thing is that when you set up a filter on your quick bar, it creates a link and it is registered on that slot. So it says that this slot is linked to the quick bar, and this slot in the inventory is filtered. So there is going to be this type of item in it. It's going to be auto-filled, and that means that you can actually have a flag that is going to correspond to items that you have on your quick bar, so that they don't get affected by control click, for example.
Right.
And this is easy to create. This is going to be rather intuitive, and I think it can be like, if you click on the empty square, only the inventory that is not on your quick bar gets transferred, and then if you click again, then the quick bar gets transferred as well.
I find that very intuitive, actually. I like that idea.
And it also allows you to come to a chest with full of random crap and just control click it and like, can you imagine like having an autofill system for your tool belt filters? So that you can come to a chest, open it, control click on your tool belt, and you get like one stack of each of those items that you have on tool belt, and no more, no less.
Or like refill your tool belt to the maximum stack size.
I think this is awesome.
I like that idea. I like that idea.
I'm not sure if it's easy to create though, but it's gonna be awesome.
Because I like the general, like when you have an item in your hand, that it's like, if you're doing, for example, Anti-Elites does it a lot when he's doing his speedruns in Factorio.
Oh yeah.
Where he's using the control, like, drag.
Control drag on right click. And
yeah. Where you can use it a lot for like, you have like a bunch of thing where you just want to make it once. In the very beginning, for example, where you just have like a bunch of furnaces. You don't really have the materials for inserters, blah blah blah, so you do it manually. You have a bunch of furnaces, you control drag over it, and it's done. Easy peasy. Instead of like dragging the item, putting it in, dragging the item, putting it in, dragging the item.
Yeah, that makes things so much faster.
It just makes things easy. Like, they realize that it kind of takes away a little bit of like sense, like real life sense, if you will.
Yeah,
like
but
the immersion. But they take it as a sense of, okay, this doesn't make any sense because it's so useless. You just spend time doing basically just dragging around. Why not just give them the ability to fill them, like just drag it over them, make it easy and simple?
Because having like things that are annoying and difficult in a game is basically, it's a negative impact to the whole game design perspective, to be honest.
Yeah, which is personally why I loved having inventory mods in Minecraft. Like, everybody who plays Minecraft to some extent, at some point, will use these inventory mods because they make life so much better.
Always fucking NEI, because recipes, because autofill for recipes, and because auto sort for inventory. And like auto replace the pick that breaks. This is like fucking the easiest thing that you can add into the vanilla game. Why is it's not there? Just why not? Because why would
players don't want it, that are like, oh, I'm so hardcore, I'm gonna stay vanilla.
Because they don't care, I think, usually. Because yet again, when you get used to things, you don't really notice faulty, like different faulty aspects of those things when you are already used to them.
Yeah.
It's like you get used to showering in cold water, and you're like, well, why would I pay for hot water when I'm used to showering in cold water? Yes, I have flu every second day of my life, and yes, I always sneeze and cough, but I'm already used to that. It's like the same thing with counterintuitive inventories, etc. By the way, speaking of that guy who got, let's not say fired, I don't know what happened, but okay, the guy who left the team. Forgot his name, sorry. Norbert, right. So the guy that is a professional UX designer who created blueprints as they are right now for the game.
Right.
Like it was Friday FX 170, I think, when they introduced the new blueprint thing with the blueprint book and them being free, basically, and naming and filtering. And
yeah, I love that actually. I love that thing, by the way. I love it that at any point of the game you can make or load a blueprint.
Yes, this is amazing. I
like just think about the possibilities. Like for me at the start, for example, I could have laid out everything already.
Yep.
And then just go for it. I hit my pop filter, I'm sorry. But you can just lay it up from the beginning. It makes late game way better and just much, much more intuitive.
Yeah, I always remember like the stage when you just got blueprints, like in point 13, and you have like 3 red circuits, and you create a blueprint, and then you fuck up and you have to delete it, and then you create it again, and then you run out of red circuits and you can't delete the blueprint. That's like, why?
Yeah.
What's the point of what's happening? What's happening, right? And now they are much better.
One more thing I love is that they actually finally added the option to export it to a string.
Yeah, blueprint
Thank
string
you
plus
so much
blueprint book, amazing mods. And I think like the idea is that when everyone uses a mod, you just have to implement into the game.
Yeah, pretty much.
Like Kerbal Space Program did, for example, with electricity and radio transmission, and soon to be life support, I think.
Yeah, like I said, this is one of those things where it's like, why don't you guys think of this? It's like, it's one of the most simplest things you could think about. Just have it extract into like a 128-bit string or whatever, so people can more easily share it instead of being like, oh, here's a screenshot. Good luck trying to reproduce it.
Yeah, oh my god, like, the biggest problem is that, for example, you have just updated Factorio and you haven't yet installed the blueprint string mod, and it's the time when there is no Steam release. Like, you have to download it manually and place the zip file into the fucking folder that is buried somewhere, just to look at that one design that you want to use. This is also really annoying, so that now it's implemented into the game, you don't have to bother about it at all.
Yeah, for me, for example, I have a paste bin where I post most of my blueprints or blueprint books. Where I can be like, oh yeah, here they are. Feel free to take them. Or
amazing, everyone can use that, and you can use it if you forgot about it. For example, like you are sitting on a different computer and you want to use your blueprint, you just go to paste bin, you copy the string, and boom. You have your design, you have everything, you have your whole factory.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, at this stage, you could probably copy a full-on factory. And have it break if you have the proper
blueprint has a limit, by the way.
I know, but we're talking about features. Like,
I mean, I don't really know.
To some extent, you could probably copy a whole factory within a book.
Yeah.
My factory, for example, if I use the exact same, what do you call it? Like seed and map generation seed and everything.
Oh yeah, you can just plunk it down where it is, and that's going to be fine.
Pretty much.
Except if you misplace it by one tile and you have to rebuild everything.
And obviously you need to get to that stage where actually like robots can build it, otherwise it will be just a pain in the ass.
Well, no. If you have robots and you misplace things, you can just delete everything and rebuild it again.
Yeah, but if you're talking, you're starting a new map. You're importing your old like factory instead of like grabbing.
Yeah, you plug it down. You start building it. Then you like halfway through, like 5 hours into the game, you realize that it's offset, and you have no fucking idea what to do.
So bad.
I don't know. I usually just delete the save if I realize that I fucked up somewhere like a few hours into the game. That really pisses me off.
That would piss me off so mad. Oh man, that would piss me hard. That would piss me off so mad. I would not even want to try to explain how much it pisses me off if I would ever do that. I mean, I'm not gonna do it anyways because there's no reason to. Because then I would need to start from zero anyway.
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna play on the same seat because it's boring unless I'm speedrunning. But I'm not gonna speedrun. So
yeah, I think that speedrunning Factorio is like, well, Anti-Elites does it. He is the best currently and the only, and
he's kind of stopping himself because he realized now with the new science packs, trying to speedrun this is just a no.
Well, technically speaking, I think that 0.15 revamp can spawn a couple more speedrunners because, for example, like that guy who I recently stumbled upon, the Fruit Bats, he's quite a big streamer, and he is just like, oh, I'm going to play Factorio, and he just recently played his, I think, first world in Factorio, and he is going to speedrun the game.
Mine, by the way. I never have launched a rocket so far. Just a side note. Go on.
Yeah, technically speaking, I have finished one save, but I've played after that like for about a couple 100 hours. So I have only one save where I actually finished the game. I think maybe two. I don't remember.
Wow, I never finished it. Not legitimately, anyways.
Yeah, because there are some multiplayer games like where we mostly fucked around and then we eventually ran out of resources.
I mean, I finished it once, but at the end of the day, that was in 0.13, I think, or 0.12, where I finished it once and I was like, you know what, the last couple things, just because I couldn't wait for it, cheated them in and was like, fuck it.
Oh, you mean like you built everything, but you didn't want to wait for structures, like for low densities, for example.
Yeah. So I just spawned them in and sent up the rocket, and I was like, fuck it, I couldn't care.
Oh yeah. Also, the nice thing is that that save where I finished the game was like so-called hardcore mode, where you set biters to maximum, and everything else is left as default. So resource spawning is fucking retarded, and biters are everywhere. This was literally, I think, the best experience of Factorio for anti-later flamethrowers, because it was. Because usually Factorio is a game about building. When you play hard mode, it's mostly about not dying.
Pretty much. Like
when
personally, I personally love playing peaceful because I want to relax with this game. Just sit down, build something awesome, right? That's the basic gist of it for me. So different people have different opinions. Some people like going crazy with it. Like Anti-Elites has a speed running, although he's kind of stopping. You like going hardcore or whatever, and I like relaxing, you know?
I wouldn't say that I like going hardcore, but I tried it a couple times.
Fair
One of them was actually recorded, and it was a series on YouTube, and I lost the game because I've ran out of power, and I got overwhelmed, and I was unable to recover the factory. And then 0.13 update hit, and I had to basically start from scratch because everything was broken.
Yeah.
So yeah, but this is an amazing experience because, especially now that they've added smoother progression in terms of military and biters. It's like
I like the idea where they went with the new science packs. But it kind of also makes the biters useless and just annoying.
Yeah, that it makes more sense to play peaceful right now. But the idea is that with the smoother biter progression and smoother offensive tech progression, every time you think you finally push them back enough and you're safe, turns out that they've evolved and you have to build bigger guns, or you ran out of materials and you have to expand further away. And this is like a constant struggle. Because at like point 12 or point 11, when the big biters were the last thing, well, you can wipe out big biters with a power suit and a swarm of drones easily, and you can run around them and not be damaged at all. And worms get insta-gipped when you reach like 100 drones surrounding you.
But I mean, nowadays we have the tank with fucking shells, so I don't think much has changed since then.
No, because you have to repair the tank. And when you have like big worms covering the fucking map, and when you have mostly behemoths coming, tank is not going to fucking save you, and power suit is not going to fucking save you.
It's still OP as hell, to be fair.
Yeah.
It's not like, oh yeah, I really need to look at my health constantly to make sure I don't die. More like, oh, my tank is getting low, better drive away, kill the last couple biters, repair it,
the tank finally makes sense, because previously the tank was just a very heavy, very slow, and awkward power suit. Basically. For you to run around and place turrets in turret creep bases. And now you can actually use tank. Use tank and like tank shells to fucking demolish everything. And by the way, I do really feel like biters became stronger.
Yeah, now that I'm getting into it myself, actually killing them, like I can feel like I'm on normal settings, right?
Yeah.
They're not like, I left the spiders on default setting. Like biters spawning, how much they spawn, so on and so forth. I left that on default setting. And in my tank, I actually had to look out to make sure my tank doesn't die, because I couldn't be bothered to make another one.
Yeah, and like the further you go out, the bigger the bases become, and the more worms they have. And I think they started expanding more aggressively. I didn't really read about the new biter mechanics, but I feel like they become stronger the higher the evolution factor is. I mean, like in general, I think they have like either more health or more resistances and more damage, and their expansion mechanic is much more aggressive. Because previously you could just place those, like
have a blueprint with like laser turrets and just basically.
No, I'm talking about you could place. How was that? A victory pole. It's called. When you place a power pole where the biter base was, and expansion chunks get blocked completely.
Interesting.
Like in a 5x5 radius. And this was like a huge exploit that I constantly used when playing hardcore mode, because otherwise I would have been overwhelmed instantly. And now I feel like they keep expanding. So instead of sending an expansion crew immediately into the area, they first send off like a scout crew and kill everything there. Because, for example, you could have seen, or maybe not, on the stream, where my radar outposts got destroyed.
Right.
My radar outposts got destroyed constantly. And there were biter colonies right on top of them.
Right.
Whereas previously, this radar outpost, you clean biters out, you plunk it down, and unless the biter nest is actually aggroed by pollution, they are not going to go anywhere, because the expansion chunks are blocked.
Right.
And now, even like looking at the map, so I'm not sure if you can provide a screenshot of that, but showing the enemy expansion candidate chunks in the debug view, you can see that there is not like green circles and then nothing. There is like green circles, orange circles, and then red circles. Right, and I feel like it's more of a waiting/priority system rather than allowed or denied. And that's why they still can expand into your factory, basically, and aggressively expand closer to the walls.
Yeah, especially if you don't have gates. Like you
please don't remind me about that. This was not the most pleasant experience.
Yeah, I found that so funny. I found that hilarious that you were like, how the hell did they get in there? Oh, right.
I haven't done such mistakes for like, I think 2 years by now. But yeah, so in general, this is a good idea to complete the wall actually when you have the wall off of your base. Especially if you're playing on a big map, because like in the early game you can plunk down turrets here and there just to have consistent turret coverage and not wall off completely, and this is fine. But when attack groups are like 50 biters, medium biters and big biters, yeah, you have to just close the fucking wall, otherwise they're going to run around the factory. I feel like they started to ignore military buildings more and just go straight for pollution sources if they can.
Which I personally don't mind too much. It makes sense, sort of.
Well, it makes them more realistic because they should be aggroed by pollution.
I don't know. I don't know how to feel about it. I don't usually tend to fuck around with biters too much. Like, for example, on my stream world, I just had to kill them so I can expand.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
Well, that's the thing. Like in general, you have to you combat them either when they really bother you or when you actually have to expand.
Right. So
and usually, if you don't clear them out on non-peaceful, they keep closing in and surrounding you, and you eventually have to clear them out again.
Yeah,
that's the thing.
Which you
if
have
you
to issue with.
know Bantham or Mangled Pork Gaming on YouTube, his Railroad series, where he's basically creating separate towns or like it's factorial towns, I think called. Yeah, right. So he has a huge desert full of biters, and he has to constantly push them back. He has like few walls that protect him from different attacks, and still they managed to get into his territory and start attacking individual towns in the basically in the center, going for production. So yeah, I think biters are more interesting from the game design perspective as of now.
Speaking of biters, though, getting back to the multiplayer aspect that we wanted to talk about. Talking about biters made me think of it because I probably need to stop playing peaceful and play with you in non-peaceful mode.
Well, that might be your first experience of playing non-peaceful mode.
Yeah, it is. I don't know. I like peaceful. It's very chill, relaxed, and sit back. It's very laid-back gaming, which I personally love. Like I said, that's why I sold CS:GO. Kind of garbage. I just want to start gaming more relaxed. I want to sit down. I just want to stream, have a good old time, just go with it.
Yeah, be able to get distracted by chat and talk to people, and not constantly be bothered by biter attacks.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's why it might be a good idea to actually play in a hardcore world.
It could be hardcore, definitely not. But just generally playing how it's intended to be played. Maybe I can go with it.
We are definitely installing RSO for that. For sure.
You want to go for something like a train world, or what do you want to do?
I want to go for a save where we are not going to eventually run out of resources. Because the problem with the regular mode of the game is that resource count is not exponentially increasing as you explore. And you have to spend more.
Use the rich resources thing.
Rich resources thing does not add an exponent.
It does.
Really?
Yes.
No, I think
it does. No bullshit. It does.
Wait a second. I have to Google that because
it does. No bullshit. I'm not bullshitting you.
Okay, I'm going to believe you because that's much easier than looking for actual data right now. Yeah, it actually makes sense because I'm just remembering my previous experiences. For example, I've stumbled on my old multiplayer factory from point 11, had to fix it and figure out why we've stopped playing that. I found out that we ran out of nearby resources, and then I've played like 60 hours more into the save, and I realized that I don't have any time to expand the save because I'm constantly running around the map, creating new outposts and tearing down old outposts with iron and copper, because the bigger factory becomes, the faster you consume resources. That's the problem. And because RSO adds the exponential growth, basically it allows you to eventually find so it eventually compensates for the time that you waste on expanding, because the bigger the patches that you expand on, the longer you have to wait for it to run out, even though your resource consumption grows. Your resource consumption rate is linear.
Right.
Like the growth of it is linear, because you usually
at the beginning until mid-game it's probably exponential rather than linear, but at some point it gets more linear.
You mean vice versa, like it gets exponential in the late game because you will spend the same amount of time on doubling your production.
Really?
Yeah, because
I felt more the other way around, personally.
Well, I think it depends on your playstyle, by the way, because
probably.
Well,
I mean, different people, different playstyles, so it could be probably different, where I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go full crazy on resources in the beginning, which is why it's exponential for me, and then it goes linear from there.
I think technically, it makes sense that in the late game, in a single player world, your growth slows down, because in the early game you basically with one blueprint double your production, and then you can't double this because it becomes too big, and you have to like get it 20% more, and then 20% more again, and then like 10% more. So it's still exponential, but the coefficient is smaller.
Exactly.
And the resource growth, with the resource growth, the exponent coefficient is stays the same.
Right.
That's why you finally start to catch up with yourself.
Yep. Which I, for example, did. We actually replaced my iron smeltery for once, and actually went for a proper ratio design instead of going just full idiot mode.
So you redesigned the thing again, or
I didn't redesign it. I actually plopped it down.
Oh, you plopped it down, and it works fine for you. Because yeah, right, it has 72 furnaces, I think, right?
Yeah, but I'm using red belt for now because I don't have.
You can upgrade it later. No big deal.
Yeah, I just made it with 70 furnaces, so I can upgrade it. I think 72 actually for redundancy.
Yeah, 72, so you can eventually upgrade the thing.
Yeah, so I can upgrade it to blue belts, and have it still like output full ham. So yeah, that's that.
What else is there, like from the perspective of interesting laid-back games? Have you ever played Kerbal Space Program, by the way?
No, it seems like a game. It's just, I don't know, it seemed a bit expensive for me, because here in Switzerland it would cost me like 40-45 bucks.
Oh.
Yeah.
I bought the game when it was like fucking 0.14, I think, and it cost me, well, if we convert to the current ruble to dollar, it was $10, I think.
Wow, yeah.
But then it was like 15 or 20 even. Of course, because
even for that, I probably would have bought it. But for the current price of like 40, almost 45, almost 50 sometimes, like if it's not on sale, it's like, no.
I managed to like download it and find because it's not DRM protected or anything. You can just basically copy the files and have free access for give them to anyone you want. That's why I've played since, I think, 0.9, and then after like 0.15 I realized, yes, I have to buy this game, definitely, because this is going to get more expensive, and the game is fucking amazing. I'd better just support the developers. And by the way, it's a very good thing that I did it, because they are now releasing the first DLC for the game, basically.
That does not wonder me. I just was waiting for you to say these fucking three letters, DLC, because I hate these. Man, I hate these three letters together.
Yeah, but the DLC is called like what is Making History something, Making History Together, I think. And the idea is that it's going to cost some money, but it's free for those who bought the game before going full release, basically. So right. For anyone who bought the game before it was 1.0, this DLC and every other DLC is going to be free, because it's technically supporting an early access game. And for those who like got on the hype train recently and bought the game after it got released, it is going to be, I think, $15.
Wow.
Or $10, whatever. Something like half of price of the game or whatever. I don't know the exact number. But the thing is that unlike most DLCs, this Making History, oh yes, it's called Making History, just Making History, not Making History Together, Making History expansion. It adds interesting things, but they are not necessary to have full experience of the game.
Fair enough.
So like the game has everything. It has radio connections, it has resource mining. They're probably going to add life support. It's
basically finalized at this point.
Yeah, the game is finalized. Was finalized when it was 1.0. They just decided to actually add radio connections to the game with a loud and clear update, because they were so much requested by people, and they are completely optional. You can disable them in options menu.
Oh, fair enough.
And this history pack, it's like how do you call this? A scenario mode, basically, for the game.
Fair
so
enough.
that people can create their own missions without digging into modding deeply.
So it's like, I actually have like something to do, so I just like, I'm not sitting here not knowing what the hell I should be doing, kind of thing.
Yeah, might as well create a fucking huge colony and then create a mission to like support that colony for other people to enjoy.
Right.
It's like, do you remember Spore? There was like
I remember
nice
Spore.
Maxis game Spore, and it has this add-on like Galactic Adventures, I think it's called.
I don't know.
Right? though it had this DLC that was called Galactic Adventures that allowed you to play missions in the space age that looked like a creature stage gameplay, basically. So you run around as a single guy and do things. It was awful. It was disgustingly designed, but it added like a whole new side of things to the already extremely sandboxy game of Spore.
Right.
And it was completely optional, but like everyone still bought it because it was cool. It was awful in terms of design and production, but it was really cool. And that's,
like the concept was awesome, but like
the realization was fucking awful, but the concept was awesome. And knowing like the KSP guys being amazing at designing games, I think everyone is going to buy that expansion, even though it's going to cost a lot. And I think it's going to be worth it, to be honest.
Well, we would just need to wait and see, I guess. I don't know. I've seen gameplay of Kerbal Space Program, so I generally know what it's about, but I never played it myself. I just always thought, okay, this is just some random like sandbox like game where you just build like a spaceship and try to go as high as possible or as far as away from
in general it is
from Earth as possible, you know.
I think this is an amazing experience, like just creating a spaceship and going as far as possible. But for people who don't really know what to do with the game, I think scenario mode is going to be like the thing, like the exact thing. Because I personally don't really want to play scenarios. I can create my own scenarios, and I did that in the past. I mean, not like coded scenarios, but just like having a script and acting by that script and having certain restrictions, self-set restrictions, and like streaming that stuff and recording, and people enjoy that. And I think that the only problem that KSP has, and it's destined to have the problem because it's a fucking realistically designed space game, very high, very steep learning curve.
Yeah, so but then also again, like stuff like I personally play a lot of Elite Dangerous, for example, one of my favorite games, which is very spacey, very scientific-ish,
Yeah,
where it's trying to be like pseudo-scientific.
It also looks fucking amazing.
It also looks fucking amazing. I have a bunch of screenshots. If it didn't cost
like, what is it, $100 or whatever, I would have bought it definitely.
I think it was like altogether with the DLC, it was like 60 or 50 to $60. Which,
pretty much.
In my opinion, for the amount of time I spent on the game already, was worth it. I spent already 350 hours. And I'm just taking a break to not get burned out on it because I spent those 350 hours within like 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah, because you just sit and play the game.
Yeah, all
and
day.
You can't stop. And
it's awesome.
To be honest, I don't really even want to play it until I get like a full-on controller set, like with the joystick and stuff.
Even with keyboard and mouse, it's very playable. It's very enjoyable. It's very also if you're not in if you're into exploring like I am, like going really far away, finding the unknown kind of stuff.
Yeah, and doing everything yourself, like setting things up and customizing your ship.
Yeah.
Basically everything that No Man's Sky failed to do.
Pretty
let's
much.
Not talk about No Man's Sky.
Yeah, let's not talk about that. I'm so sad I couldn't refund it. That $60 I will never get back. Oh man.
Yeah. Only thing that saved me from buying it was that my laptop is garbage. It was garbage at the moment I'm in. I mean, just like that.
The game looks gorgeous, but that's about it.
Yep. Then Elite Dangerous looks gorgeous and
Elite Dangerous looks amazing. Way better. It's also way more scientific. It's not this arcadey kind of style where No Man's Sky, I hate saying that name by the way. Whereas the game that I don't want to say the name of is very arcadey, whereas Elite Dangerous is very scientific and tries to be super, super exact with its like scientific reasons. Where it's like, we have this system where it's like you can actually look up the theoretical method of like jumping, that they're using. Where there is like a full-on theory with real physics behind it. Which makes it just way more interesting.
And it doesn't force you to do anything. That's the best thing, I think.
No. You're basically game to play the game because for whatever reason, maybe you want to do background simulation. You can do that. Yeah. Maybe you want to go as far away from planet Earth as possible. Go for it. Which, by the way, speaking about planet Earth, they also have like stuff like you can visit TRAPPIST-1, you can visit Earth, you can like visit nebulae that you can see from our Earth.
Yeah, I watched some amount of streams on Elite Dangerous just to relax, because just looking at the screen is fucking amazing, and the
even
detail and
the whole
quality.
sound system of Elite Dangerous is amazing. Like, what we call honking in Elite Dangerous is when you get your discovery scanner and it does like a huge sound, you know? It's amazing.
Yeah.
It just sounds very, very satisfying. So it's super awesome to use it. And other players can actually hear it, because the lore of it basically says, oh yeah, audio can't go through space, so we're just gonna send the information of that audio to the other spaceships nearby, so their internal speakers can replay the audio inside the ship.
That's cool.
So
That's
they have that,
cool.
all that kind of stuff is already like figured out, and it's all lore-wise and so on. Speaking about streams, for the last thing of today's podcast, so we can finish it off.
Yeah,
both our links,
almost like 2 hours in.
We're pretty much 2 hours in. Speaking of our streams, our links will be down below in the video description. Feel free to check us out when we're live, whenever we are live.
Yeah, if you, for whatever reason, want to check out another stream, that might interest you. Well, yeah. Anyway, that might be a good idea, actually.
Yeah.
So we spent some time doing that during the week, and it's very satisfying to get like rewarding experience from streaming.
Yeah. Couple things to come up. Our multiplayer series should be coming up at some point, hopefully soon. We will need to figure that out when we're gonna do that. Another podcast next Monday. It should go up live on Monday, I hope. And yeah, thank you guys for listening. This will be up on SoundCloud and YouTube. So yeah. Do you have any last words for this podcast anyways?
I definitely have to get you into playing Kerbal Space Program at some point.
Maybe during this Steam summer sale, maybe. Because I have 70 bucks in my Steam account that I don't know what to do with. So we will see about it. Maybe, maybe not. Who knows?
Okay then. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody, for listening.
Very appreciated.
And we will see you next Monday.
Goodbye.
Have a good one.